What up, reader fam? Today I am bringing you another one of my books I've read recently videos. Even though that title is a little bit of a lie for this video because a lot of these books I read back in June, I'm a little bit behind on reviewing books, you guys. The first book I'm going to be talking about today is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This was actually the Booksplosion book of the month for the month of June, and we worked with Penguin Random House on this. I will leave a link down below to our Booksplosion live show for this book if you want to hear all our spoilery thoughts on this book. I feel like this book is challenging to explain because it has so many different elements to it. But to put it simply, this book follows our main character Lyra, who is traveling north because all these kids are being abducted. And Lyra is taking on the challenge of saving those kids. I have a bit of a weird history with this book. This is not my first time reading this book. I've read it before. I read it for a college course the first time I read it, and I really didn't like it. I think a big part of the reason as to why I didn't like this book the first time I read it is because we had to dissect it from every which way, every different angle, and it was just a lot. But then I reread it for the Booksplosion book of the month for the month of June, and I reread it using the audiobook format. And oh my Lanta, did that change the reading experience for me. I enjoyed it so much more the second time around. And I think it's because of the audiobook. The audiobook has a full cast performing the story, and I really felt like it did an amazing job of bringing the story to life. The story is jam-packed with so many different elements. It's magical, it's hecka dark, and it's crazy adventurous. While it does have all these amazing things to offer, and I loved all of those great things that it brought to the table, I also did feel like it was a chore to get through at times. And I don't know if that's just because this is the first book in a series, so it has to set up the world, and it has to set up the magic system. But man, I could be reading this book for an hour, and it felt like I was making no progress at all. So I'd say that the biggest critique that I have for this book is that the pacing just felt super off. Especially when we get closer to the end of the book. I kept being like, oh, it's gonna end. Nope. Oh, we're almost done. Nope. The end. Nope. All in all, I am glad that I gave this book a reread because I enjoyed it so much more the second time around, and I ended up giving this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up here, I have Little Monsters by Kara Thomas. This was the Booksplosion book of the month for the month of August, and we worked with Penguin Random House, and we've already done our live show for this book, so I will leave a link down below to our live show if you want to hear all our spoilery thoughts on this book. This story is about this girl named Casey who moves to this new town to live with her father, her stepmother, and her step-siblings. At school, she ends up hitting it off with these two girls named Jade and Bailey, but then one night something kind of happens. Jade and Bailey go to this party and they don't invite Casey, and Casey doesn't really understand why, and all of a sudden there's this kind of divide between these two girls and Casey, but Casey never gets to resolve things with the girl Bailey because Bailey ends up going missing. I've been burned in the past when it comes to YA thrillers because a lot of the times they're predictable and just so underwhelming, but praise the Lord above, this one didn't burn me. This book was less on the thrill side of things and more on the mysterious side of things. Throughout this book, you're basically just trying to get to the bottom of the disappearance of Bailey and what went down there and who's involved with all of that. There were just so many things to love about this book, and I'm having a hard time reviewing this book right now because I don't want to spoil anything, and I feel like it could be so easy to give away everything that happens on accident. So I'm gonna try to be vague here, but I liked how this book kind of went in a really unexpected way. It goes in a direction that you don't expect it to. It has a really nice focus on family, which is something that I didn't expect going into this book. It's a YA book where the parents are present throughout the book, which is not something that happens that often. And I really loved Kara Thomas's writing style. She did a great job of keeping this eerie vibe present throughout the book, and also just really packing in a bit of a punch when it came to the climax of the story. Gosh, I feel like I'm being so vague, but I want you guys to go read this book and be surprised. I don't want to spoil anything or give anything away. With that being said, I ended up giving this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I was pleasantly surprised by this book. Next up, I read Milk and Honey. This is a poetry collection. It's a really hyped poetry collection. I know that a lot of people love this one. It's split up into 4 sections: the hurting, the loving, the breaking, and the healing. It kind of delves into the pain of what the author has endured throughout her lifetime. I find it difficult to critique this book because it is such a personal thing for this author, and I also feel like this book could bring a lot of healing to a lot of people who have been through the same things that this author has been through, but I personally didn't love this collection of work. That might be because I had super high expectations going into it, but this book just didn't really wow me. That's not to say there weren't parts of it that I loved, because hello, look at these little tabbies I've got going here. I guess the best way that I can describe my feelings for this poetry collection is that it just felt like poetry that I've seen before on Tumblr that just was really surface level, and that in my opinion just didn't dive as deep as I was hoping it would. but I don't know, that's just my thoughts on it. Again, I find it really difficult to critique poetry because it is such a personal thing, so I'm still learning how to talk about it and how to discuss it in a critical way, but I hope you're understanding how I feel about this book. I ended up giving Milk and Honey 2 out of 5 stars. Finally, the last book that I'm going to be talking about today is Something in Between by Melissa de la Cruz. This story is about a girl by the name of Jasmine, and her family are Filipino immigrants. One day, Jasmine is given this National Scholar Award invitation, which is when her parents reveal to her that their visas have expired, and that her family has been living in the country illegally. As you can imagine, this completely changes Jasmine's world. She has to rethink what her future looks like, and focus on how she's going to overcome this obstacle that is now before her. I found this story to be incredibly important, specifically on how it tells the story of undocumented immigrants. The book does a really great job of shedding light on that topic. It was raw and vulnerable seeing how our main character dealt with that, and how she faces that obstacle head on. And I love seeing our main character showcase so much endurance through this struggle that she was facing. On the other hand though, there were elements in this story that I really didn't like. I didn't like the romance in this story. It was a little bit insta-lovey in my opinion. I also didn't like it because I felt like at times it really overshadowed the main important topic of this book, and I felt like it just brought a lot of unnecessary drama to the story. The other thing that I didn't like about this book was just the quality of writing. I just didn't really love the writing style, and it was definitely like the weakest part of the story. Mind you, it had moments of greatness, but I didn't feel like she kept writing out that wave of greatness. It just kind of fell flat at different points throughout the story. But all negatives aside, it is a really impactful story, and I'm so glad that I read it. And I feel as though it's a super important story, and I'm glad it's one that's being told. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So those are some of the books that I have read recently. I'm honestly so behind on reviewing books, so you might be getting another one of these videos here pretty soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. You guys should let me know down below in the comments some of the books that you've read recently, or let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in today's video and what you thought of them. If you like this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I post videos frequently on this channel, so if you want to be notified as to when I post new videos, be sure and go and hit subscribe, or go and click the little bell icon and you'll be notified as to when I post new videos. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, chew.